All right, I did one of the most dangerous things to do on one of these cars, and I grabbed a tool to do it safely. Before we get started, I wanted to cover a couple of things. First off, this is an inherently dangerous process. There's a lot of stored energy in these springs. Go slow, be cautious, use the right PVE, the right tools, do it properly. I've seen some sketchy things done and heard horror stories of injuries and fatalities. Don't let this happen to you because you saw it on YouTube. So when I decided to make this video, I reached out to NPD just to let them know I was making it, ask if I could use their instructions. They gave me permission. So yeah, if you go and you decide to buy one of these tools from NPD, tell them Evan sent you. It won't help you or me, and they won't know what you're talking about, but it might be funny. This has ended up being a longer video than I usually make. I'm going to put chapter marks in there in case you need to jump ahead or you're curious about just one part of this procedure. You can jump right to it. And if you're new to the channel and are curious, I have videos upon videos of the restoration process of this Mustang. I'll come a long way, and there's still a long way to go. So I'm working on this 67 Mustang, and I got to the point where I needed to remove the springs. Now, this is one of the most inherently dangerous things just because of how much stored energy is in these springs. When you ask folks on the forums, they recommend this tool. I'll see if I can put a link to it. You can make your own tool. It's not anything too complex. Some Acme thread, a bearing, a nut. On the other end, you've got a couple of bolts, and that's where it mounts to the spring perch. And this sits where your shock sits and used to compress the spring. So it's fairly simple. I went ahead and purchased one. I'll see if I can put the link down in there from National Parts Depot. But I wanted to show just kind of the process for using this safely and what I went through and how well it worked. Now, if you look on the National Parts Depot website, it says this is used for various cars, not just Mustangs, but Torinos, I believe. I think there's some Chevy Novas on there going from 65 all the way up through 73. So, you know, check your cars, see if this is going to work for your needs. All right, obviously, if you're doing this, you're going to want to support the car with jack stands, which I have done here. And we need to remove the wheel. Easiest way to do that is with some tension on the wheel itself. So ideally, I would have loosened the lug nuts with the car on the ground. Instead, I have it on this dolly, and it is just resting on this dolly. We'll see if that gives me enough tension to go ahead and release those. If not, I have an impact wrench I can use and just impact them off. All right, now that I have the wheel out of the way, I'm going to go ahead and remove the shock. The tool actually goes in the same spot where the shock is. So yeah, I'm going to start by loosening the top bolts. That should relieve the pressure on it, and then loosening the bottom two bolts. Then I should be able to remove this top part and lift the shock straight out. And then I'm going to essentially insert the tool in. The tool is going to wind up installing on this perch in the exact same spot that the shock is mounted in. And I have this floor jack. I'm going to just take a little bit of the weight of the suspension, not crank up on it. I want it to stay resting on these jack stands, but I just want to take a little bit so that when I loosen bolts and start disconnecting things, it's not going to violently move around or drop out anything. Okay, at this point, I've taken out my shock. I didn't do anything exciting, just kind of remove this top perch area and remove the shock out from its little hidey hole. Now I'm going to show you something. I'm going to compare the tool to the shock itself and show you how this tool works. Okay, let me see if I can successfully show you this. So this is the top perch that we saw earlier. This is where the top part, if I can get it in there, this is where the top part of the shock mounts up like this. And then from the other, this is from the driver's side, this is the bottom spring perch, and this is where the shock mounts on the bottom, and it bolts onto the underside down there. So this is kind of without the spring and all the assembly in there, how the shock mounts. And I'm not zoomed out enough to show you everything, top and bottom. So this tool is actually kind of clever. It says we've got these mount points for all of this, so why don't we replace the shock itself with the spring compressor tool? Let me put this aside and I'll show you this. So this is the spring compressor tool. We'll get you a part number on that later, but if you notice, this is spring compressor tool and this is the shock itself. Those bolts line up at the bottom, and then at the top it's got this threaded rod going all the way down, and they include with it a washer, a bearing, and a nut that fits all on this. But this plate, top plate, that goes on the shaft, and the idea is where this mounts, where the shock mounts at the top on this perch, you replace it with this plate. Goes on just like that, and the threaded rod goes through here, and then you put this on top and screw down on the nut, and it compresses the spring once everything's all attached. Pretty nifty. Okay, I have the tool in place. Things aren't torqued down yet. Let me show you down below. Tool's in the center of the spring there, and I've tightened up these nuts on the bottom. I have, obviously I need to crank these down, but the perch in place with the bolts in place, and then the same bolts that were used to hold the top of the shock in are going to secure down into this top perch. If you read the instructions, I did chat with National Parts Depot. These are copyrighted instructions, but they gave me permission to show them for this video. The order goes plate, bearing, washer, and then nut. And they do recommend to grease the threads. It was pretty greased from when I did the driver's side over there, but I added a little bit more on there. Can't hurt. So I'm going to go ahead and secure all of these bolts, double check that the bottom, everything is nice and torqued down. For grease, I had this black lithium grease, multi-purpose. It works great for threading up things like this. You could probably use bearing grease or various other types of grease to lubricate those threads. So as we're doing this, remember, there's a lot of stored energy in this spring. You don't want a simple oversight, like not torquing down a bolt, to cause a failure and have that energy release uncontrolled. So one thing to note, I've got several sets of wrenches going up to 1 inch and then various metric things. I kind of didn't realize the first time I tried to use this that this was 1 1/4 inch, even though that was made very clear in the instructions, but I didn't realize I had a wrench that would work for that. So I bought an inexpensive 1 1/4 inch. I mean, yeah, you could probably find these online for, well, I know because I found one online for not too much money. The only use I have for this immediately is this, and it's, more than up to the task. If I were using this every day, I'd probably invest in a decent tool, but this should do the trick. All right, tightening down the top perch bolts. These are honestly less critical than the bottom bolts because everything's being compressed down in that direction. But regardless, we don't want anything slipping around, so it's worth getting a good torque on these. Right. And switching out to 1/2 inch socket. Go ahead and probably could have held off on greasing that thread until this was done, but that's all right. All right. I made sure the bottom is perfectly tight. Is sufficiently tight. The top is secure. Let me just go ahead and I'm just going to hand drive this down until it makes contact, and then I might go ahead and remove that spring shield I was talking about. Okay, that should be good to go. Let's go ahead and remove that spring shield, and then let's start compressing. Okay, so now that I've got everything out of the way, just for funsies, I'm going to remove this little guard here. When I compress the spring, I'm going to have to move it up and out of the way, so having this out of the way is going to help out with that. Then I'll go ahead and install the tool and start compressing. Okay, I have everything easy access. Got the shield off. I've got everything torqued down, especially on the bottom. I don't know why. I'm not worried about this massive Acme nut flying off of those threads, but we got two threads down there, one on this side and one on back behind there that you can barely see. But I think if anything's going to give way, it's going to be these bottom ones. So I just made sure that those were clean threads, snug down, and tightened in a way that they're not going to go anywhere. Even with all of that said and all those precautions, I'm still going to go slowly, make sure that everything feels fine and, isn't concerning. Okay, I only did just a few turns just to take up a little bit of the tension. I don't want to fully have everything compressed yet. What I'm going to do at this point is the bottom of this perch where it connects to the upper control arm. I'm going to get underneath here and remove the bolts on either side of that. So as I compress, it's going to leave this part, the entire assembly here where it is, and then this spring should compress up and come loose of that. Once that's the case, once I get everything up and compressed on the spring, I'll make sure that this drops down and we can start decompressing the spring. Okay, as I just mentioned, I got these the nuts on the other side of this perch disconnected. My jack stand is still, or jack stand, my floor jack is still just taking the weight. Okay, everything is loose. Let's actually start compressing. This is the part where you're going to store a lot of energy in this spring and be working around it. So this is the part that honestly scares me a little bit, but slow and steady, just kind of make sure everything's in place and good to go. Okay, took up just enough tension to clear the upper control arm. I don't need to compress the spring all the way. Let's go ahead and start loosening it and see if I can wiggle it out of there. Okay, I am excited. I've got, I don't know if you can see this, the perch is loose to the upper control arm. When I go ahead and wiggle on this, we're loose. I've got just about all the tension out of the spring. Yeah, you can see I can turn it by hand at this point. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to back this nut off, loosen these bolts, and that'll make it a lot easier to kind of maneuver this out. The tool is I'm going to leave it attached to the perch for now, the lower perch there, and take it all out as one unit. All right, there we have it. One more spring safely out of the way. This tool's great. The only downside that I can see, and this, I mean, take it with a grain of salt, but you need to take the perch out with it, which not a big deal. Just 2 bolts and everything comes out as a unit. But if you are doing something where you need the perch in there for some reason, I don't know why you would. Yeah, you're going to have to figure that out on your own. The other thing, just to mention, I've only done this with, as you can see, like the steering's all disconnected from here. I don't think that's going to impede you any, but just in case I needed to drop this down all the way to get the spring out and maneuver it out, it's possible that with the steering all connected that something might hold you up, but I don't think so. If someone's done this before with everything still connected, let me know. And yeah, we'll find it in the comments. But yeah, now I get to dig in and see all this crud that wound up in there over time. I'll let you know if I find anything good. Okay, bottom line is I really like this tool. I did not at any point feel unsafe, even with a bunch of stored energy in these springs. Go slow, take your time, make sure everything's secured. You may want to pick up, if you don't have, an 1.25 inch wrench. You might want to grab one. That'll make life a little bit easier. If not, you can use a large slip joint or adjustable wrench and get away with that. You're also going to want some grease, basically any lithium grease or bearing grease or anything, just so you're not grinding metal on these threads as you compress the spring. Okay, if you are still with me, thank you so much for watching. Happy to get the springs out, moving forward onto the engine bay. If you're new to the channel, I've got a whole host of videos on every step I've taken of the restoration process onto metalwork. The next things I'm going to be working on are the engine bay, evaluating shock towers, and seeing if I'm buying new ones.